It really came down to listening closely to who was reaching out to us and why. And one pattern kept showing up loud and clear. A large number of the people contacting the helpline aren't calling for themselves. They're calling because they're worried about someone they love. And when we looked at the data on mental health conditions that are mentioned on the helpline, serious mental illness didn't just come out on top, it dominated by a wide margin. It's by far the most frequently mentioned type of condition that we track.
So welcome to Hope Starts With Us, a podcast by NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm your host, Dan Gillison, NAMI CEO. NAMI started this podcast because we believe that hope starts with us. Hope starts with us talking about mental health. Hope starts with us making information accessible. Hope starts with us providing resources and practical advice. Hope starts with us sharing our stories, and hope starts with us breaking the stigma. If you or a loved one is struggling with a mental health condition and have been looking for hope, we made this podcast for you. Hope starts with all of us. Hope is a collective. We hope that each episode, with each conversation, brings you into that collective so you know you are not alone. Today's episode is about the NAMI HelpLine and our newest option, the NAMI Family Caregiver HelpLine. Megan Rochford is the National Director of NAMI HelpLine Services. Joining her are two volunteers with the NAMI Family Caregiver HelpLine, Jessica Clementino and Inigo Sangil. Jessica, Inigo, Megan, welcome. As we get started, I'd love for us to ground this episode in lived experience. The knowledge our helpline volunteers bring to supporting help seekers is often born from their experiences. So, Jessica and Inigo, would you please share with our listeners what drove you to become a NAMI helpline volunteer?
Yeah, well, thanks, Dan, for inviting me here. It's a pleasure. I think it's an honor to be here. I love the opportunity. Now, as for your question, to me, it was about feeling the need to help. Like you said, I come with lived experience, both personal and many loved ones, and many close in my family loved ones. And it's often a challenge to fulfill that need to bring the help, to provide the help, and not being sometimes well received, right? And so what do I do with that need? How do I feel it? And I was actually listening to your podcast, to this podcast, and the call for help and I thought, this is a perfect opportunity. I want to be a part of it. I want to test it out. I'm not sure it's going to be great, but I'm gonna give it a try. So by doing that, by answering your call and go through the motions, I am able to do both things, to fill that need that I have, to provide help, to give back to the community that I received a lot, and also to just deepen the resources and the knowledge that I have to provide help adequately to my loved ones and others.
Inigo, that is fantastic, and thank you. Thank you for joining the helpline and the Family Caregiver HelpLine. Jessica, what drove you to become a NAMI HelpLine volunteer?
So when I started looking into NAMI, it was actually for an internship for my bachelor's degree. I got my bachelor's in social work. I had the option between three places to do my internship, and I ultimately went with NAMI because, one, I felt like everybody I encountered cared and really wanted to help. And that's really hard to find anywhere. But everybody that I came in contact with wanted to help, whether it was with my degree, which has nothing to do with them, or with making sure that I knew what I was doing on the helpline so that I could best serve our community. And that was really, really important to me because I felt like the helpline drove exactly what I was going into social work for, which is to truly help the individuals, to truly help the help seekers find what they need, but also let them know they're not alone. that we can listen and we can support and we can help guide you. You don't have to do this alone. We are a phone call away and we're there for you.
I love it. I love it. And we often say people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And what you and Inigo have just indicated to us is how much you care. Thank you so much for bringing your background, your lived experience, and your talent to the helpline. Megan, would you share why you chose to come work with the NAMI helpline and a little bit about your background for our audience?
Mhm. So I came to the helpline because I know in a very personal way what it means when serious mental illness changes a family forever. My own family has lived that experience, and it's a huge part of why I've spent the last 25 plus years or so doing this work. I wanted to make sure that other families didn't have to walk that path alone. I'm a licensed mental health clinician, and I've spent my career in both clinical and leadership roles. I started out as a therapist, sitting one-on-one with people, navigating mental health conditions, and helping them and their loved ones find their way toward recovery and a better life. And that work was deeply meaningful. But I kept noticing that every step that I took into leadership let
Mm-hmm.
me multiply that impact. So as a clinical leader overseeing teams of therapists, I could help far more people than I ever could alone. And when the opportunity came to serve as program director at NAMI Greater Cleveland, where I live, I got to expand that impact across all of Cuyahoga County. So when the chance came to join the national helpline, I couldn't pass it up. Here was an opportunity to do what I love, helping people living with mental illness and the families who love them, not just for one community, but for people in all 50 states. And that felt exciting in a way that I can't fully put into words. Every single day, I get to show up for families like mine, wherever they are in the country, and help make things a little bit better. That's why I'm here.
Wow, that's fantastic. And let's give a shout out to NAMI Greater Cleveland, first and foremost. And then NAMI Greater Cleveland, thank you for loaning Megan to us. And Megan, thank you for your leadership in what you're doing, leading the helpline. So over the past few years, the helpline has been growing. Megan, would you explore some of the trends you're seeing in overall NAMI helpline connections?
Certainly, of course. The trends we're seeing tell a really important story about what's happening in the lives of people living with mental illness and their loved ones right now. For about the past 2 years or so, we've watched the helpline break its own volume records month after month, more people than ever reaching out to helpline. And that alone tells us something about the moment we're in. So when it comes to what people are calling about, serious mental illness, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, first episode psychosis, those things come up most often. Right behind that, we hear a lot about depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, PTSD, and substance use disorders. But what really stands out to me is we're seeing a lot more complexity in these calls than used to. The number of connections where someone mentions more than one concern at once has grown significantly. So people aren't just dealing with one thing, right? They're often navigating several challenges kind of layered on top of each other. We're also seeing a real rise in people reaching out during a genuinely hard moment for themselves or for someone they love. And that shows up in a few ways, right? More people looking for emotional support, more people asking how to find or access treatment and crisis services, and more people who just need help figuring out how to navigate a mental health system that can feel like a maze. And increasingly, we're hearing about economic strain kind of woven into all of it. Worries about finding work, affording medication, paying bills, finding or keeping housing, fears about losing Medicaid coverage. So when I step back and I kind of look at all of this together, the story feels pretty clear to me. People are genuinely struggling, either living with serious mental illness themselves or
Yes.
watching someone they love go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're feeling unsupported and unprepared to navigate a mental health system that has fewer resources than it needs. And on top of that, there's this kind of undercurrent of uncertainty about the economy and the future. And people just aren't sure how to find or maybe hold on to stability right now. So that's what we're hearing kind of day after day on the other end of the line.
Wow. You really gave us a sense of what the mental health landscape looks like right now in terms of outreach. So, these trends that you have been seeing and the concerns from help seekers, how did that lead? We had our traditional helpline. Now we have the Family Caregiver HelpLine, and that had to have been from something that you and your team were seeing. What were those trends that led you to say, hey, Dan and team, we need to actually create a family caregiver helpline?
So it really came down to listening closely to who was reaching out to us
Mm-hmm.
and why. And one pattern kept showing up loud and clear. A large number of the people contacting the helpline aren't calling for themselves. They're calling because they're worried about someone they love. And when we looked at the data on mental health conditions that are mentioned on the helpline, serious mental illness didn't just come out on top, it dominated by a wide margin. It's
Mm.
by far the most frequently mentioned type of condition that we
Mm-hmm.
track.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that makes a lot of sense to us. Serious mental illness brings a certain level of distress and complexity that can be incredibly hard to navigate, whether you're the person living with it or the person who loves them, and is trying to help. We saw the same story kind of play out in our Helpline Knowledge Center. That's our online library of bite-sized tips and strategies for the recovery journey. Time and time again, the most visited articles were the ones that were written for family members and for loved ones. How to support someone going through a manic episode, somebody who's experiencing symptoms of psychosis, how to help a loved one find treatment, how to advocate for a loved one with mental illness who perhaps is being mistreated in jail, how to work through barriers when a treatment team can't communicate with you.
Yeah.
People were showing up again and again looking for this exact kind of guidance. And, not just family either, like the ripple effects of mental illness reaches friends and neighbors and whole communities, everyone who shows up for someone they care about. So what really solidified things for us is what we know from the research, that family support makes a real measurable difference in recovery. It
Mm.
improves quality of life. It helps with symptom management, reduces relapse rates, and it even helps kind of chip away at stigma, right? So when someone has a family member in their corner, it can instill hope and empower them to actively engage in their own recovery. But here's the catch, right? Like supporting a loved one through serious mental illness is hard. And so many family caregivers are doing it without the support they need themselves. So when we put, all of that together, the volume of loved ones reaching out, the dominance of serious mental illness in our data, the popularity of caregiver focused resources, and everything we know about how vital family support is to recovery, the need was just undeniable. So that's why we created the NAMI Family Caregiver HelpLine, to make sure that the people supporting a loved one through serious mental illness have somewhere to turn to.
Wow, that is great background and great justification for why. And you mentioned family support, Megan, and what it changes, and also you mentioned the fact that if one is impacted, the whole family is impacted, and that community is also impacted. So we say 1 in 5 live with mental illness, but we know it's 5 in 5 in terms of navigating it. So appreciate the backdrop. And now I want to go to Jessica and Inigo with the following questions. I'll start with Jessica. Jessica, what role do you feel the NAMI Family Caregiver Helpline serves for families in need of support? In other words, would you help our listeners, understand why NAMI established the Family Caregiver Helpline in from your lens?
Yes. I believe they created it because the caregivers are invisible sometimes. And that is really heavy. And the individuals who are caring for these families and the individuals that they love, they want to be able to fully support them. But as the days go on, they get a little more lost and it gets heavy, and they get their health and what they need go out the window. And with this, we're not only there to give them resources to help maybe find them some funding to help pay some bills, or pay them for taking care of the individual, or find community resources for them. It's also to remind them, hey, what are you doing for you? Have you done 5 minutes of something to clear your head, to lower your shoulders, to make your chest not be so tight? When was the last time you went to the doctor? When was the last time you went to therapy? Are you doing those things? How can we get you to realize that you deserve that and you need to do that so you can continue to do these things that you need to do for your family?
Wow. Those are some powerful questions, and it provokes them to think about their care so they can be that caregiver. And you said something also very powerful. Caregivers are sometimes invisible, Dan. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jessica. And Indigo, same question to you. What role do you feel the NAMI Family Caregiver HelpLine, serves for families in need of support? In other words, would you help our listeners understand why NAMI established? I mean, we had a traditional helpline, so why did we establish, from your viewpoint, the Family Caregiver HelpLine?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I think both Jessica and Megan did a fantastic job addressing this. But I mean, when you are in the general helpline and you keep receiving calls from help seekers who are either family members or boyfriends, girlfriends, people who are close to a person who is living with a mental illness, then it became clear that we probably need to have a specialized line dedicated to caregivers, and like Jessica put really well, is sometimes illuminating or shedding more light, removing the confusion, making them feel that this is not a situation that is happened to this caregiver, that is a situation that many Americans and many people all over the world are lived in. And so I think it's great. It feels yet one more way where a caregiver can feel that support, can get to resources, can get sometimes that emotional support and that reassurance that they are doing the right thing or how to tweak the approach. And I think that's the main role of having a dedicated caregiver line for people who are in need.
Yeah. Thank you, Inigo. Jessica and Inigo, would you share what volunteering with the NAMI Family Caregiver HelpLine is like? What does that look like for our listeners and viewers? Jessica?
It looks, how does it look? It's, for me, selfishly,
Yes, please.
it is, I was a family caregiver. I started young. And so being seen and being understood by somebody is so important. And this Family Caregiver HelpLine has done that for not only me, but even some of the people I've spoken to be able to be like, oh my gosh, yes, I understand that, and explain it to them in a different way, really brings it full circle. And I think it's really important to remind people while we're volunteering that, we are here for you, and we are going to do everything we can to help you get you your resources and what you need to hopefully better yourself and your family's situation.
Jessica, I want to build on what you just said, and thank you. Before we go to Inigo, I wanted to ask you, is there any, and first of all, having been a family caregiver at a young age, you absolutely understand this, and you understand what you shared about sometimes being invisible. So thank you for sharing that, and also sharing that. Hey, Dan and audience, I was a family caregiver. I understand this, and I apologize if I said was. You may also still be, but thank you. I wanted to ask you a question. As you're giving back and helping the caller, um, um, is there any one of these calls that stands out to you from the standpoint of something they said to you in terms of the care you gave them, the time you gave them, the active listening that you did? Is there any little, statement that any one of those callers have made that stuck with you, that has stuck with you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, Thinking about it, there's kind of so many. Every call is very unique and different. There
Mm-hmm.
isn't one that is the same. Especially when it comes to the family caregiver.
Yeah.
There's too much going on. I think the ones that stand out to me are the ones that tell me that they don't either have the time or it's not important to take care of themselves. And so then spiraling into that conversation of, I'm going to keep you on here a little bit longer because you you are important and you do need help and you do need and deserve this. So let's change that mindset.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for your patience in terms of doing that and keeping them on the call. That is incredible. And not everyone understands the value of that. So thank you, Jessica. Inigo, would you share what volunteering with the NAMI Family Caregiver HelpLine is like? What is it like for you?
Yes. So happy to share that with you. To me, is both super rewarding and daunting. Okay. And I'll tell you, don't get scared. I'm not trying to discourage anyone by all means, like the opposite. I'm an introvert. I'm a really serious introvert. So coming out there and be available and put all my energy for a number of hours on the helpline it requires an effort. So, however, I would say this: it might feel at first a little bit more of an effort, where you feel drained, where you feel a bit exhausted, and yet completely fulfilled, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that plays into the picture. After maybe 2 or 3 shifts, that went away completely. Like I didn't feel like, again, like with a little bit of being nervous and being a bit of kind of anticipating a lot of energy investment. That went away. I would say also having the team, knowing that there is a fantastic team around me that are accessible, it keeps a lot of the pressure. Because often I got involved, like I was listening to really heavy stories, really emotionally intense stories. And at the same time, I'm supposed to be like seeking what would be the best thing that I can provide this person right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I might get just totally overwhelmed by the emotion. And so I can totally reach out on the line to another person, my captain, my team, and they will just put it in there for me. And that was so easy to deal with. So now the whole pressure goes away. Like if I cannot like come up something on the fly with the right perfect, or I cannot find that family to family support group or peer support group or online meeting, I can definitely like count on my team that will just get my back and provide that resource free of pressure. So that was super amazing for me. Like it gave me that tranquility, and that it put me at ease in terms of not being nervous that I'm not gonna be able to step to that bar.
Wow.
And so that was great then, and also I don't know, like to me it was very rewarding. I cannot tell you, like you mentioned, like what kind of, do you remember any experiences where
Yes.
where you felt like you felt something that was special about the call? So I had, like Jessica mentioned, many of those instances, but I do remember one where at the end of the conversation the person was so thankful that it was just overwhelming. He kept repeating how thankful she was, and this was in the context of a person who was felt a caregiver who felt lost about what to do. Like I keep trying to tell my loved one to heed the advice of the providers, to go and take the prescription, to go to the psych emergency because he's in a crisis, and I cannot get through. And then the frustration and the ramming into that wall of, but don't you understand that you are sick, that you need to get? And so when I heard that is, we have seen this so many times, and we know that direct approach sometimes that doesn't work. And we know what we need to focus on is what you said, Dan, is on that active listening. So I'm coaching the person on the basics of, for example, Xavier Amador's LEAP approach, and coaching them through what it is to be listening, what it is to be stepping away from that, trying to convince that delusions are not real, that paranoia, that the CIA is not there watching you. So instead of focusing on those things, staying away from that and looking into building that trust. And so I just encourage the families to think about that, and then point to those resources that on how to deal with a person with a family member or a loved one who has a hard time being aware of what is going on, and having that introspection to understand that there's something terribly going on, like a psychotic disorder or something like that.
Wow.
And so when I had those conversations, and when I told the caregiver, how about focus on the relationship? Focus on small things, on partnering on a thing that preserves your boundaries, but also is in the interest of the person living with this condition. And it just, I can see the light bulb going on, and I can see, that they are experiencing this ray of hope. Now I am empowered to do something that is actually productive. So then I can now point, okay, so the calls are kind of limited, right? We are maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes with a person. So now I can tell them, just go visit this website, go read this book, listen to this podcast, where you will learn more about those techniques that will get you farther, to get you to establish that relationship. So those are the things that stuck with me, because it is personal. It just connects exactly with the situations that I'm living in. And it feels, I remember when I heard the first time, and it's like, oh my God, like I've been doing all this wrong. Now I know, and so I can pass along that knowledge.
Yeah, thank you. And passing it along is so critically important. And we often say that, folks at NAMI, they turn their pain into purpose, and that purpose becomes their passion. And what I would say is that, our lived experience, it's threaded with pain, and what folks at NAMI, particularly at the helpline, they turn that pain into their purpose. So, to each of you, I just wanted to say thank you, because your purpose is so clear in terms of how you're helping others. And as we talk about the how, I want to transition to your leader, Megan, and ask Megan, Megan, would you describe what we mean when we say our helpline volunteers are trained for this role? We hadn't said that yet, but we're saying it now. Our helpline volunteers are absolutely trained for their roles. What does the onboarding look like for our helpline volunteers?
They are absolutely trained for this role. You're so right there. On NAMI Helpline, we know that supporting people through some of their hardest moments takes real preparation and real support in return. And so that's why every helpline volunteer completes a 21-hour online self-paced helpline training before they ever take a call or a text. The training walks through everything from NAMI's vision, mission, and values to our history, purpose, and structure, and the full range of NAMI programs and services, including the helpline itself. From there, it dives into the practical foundations of the work: mental health conditions, treatments, communication basics, how to navigate helpline connections with care. Helpline volunteers also learn how to offer culturally considerate support, respond to common concerns and complex concerns that help seekers bring to the line, and how to manage risk with confidence. There's also dedicated training on teen and young adult mental health, supporting family caregivers, and understanding the diverse populations the helpline serves. And because this work asks a lot of the people who show up to do it,
Mm-hmm.
it closes with a focus on helpline specialist wellness, because taking care of yourself is part of taking care of others. On Helpline, we also believe that the learning doesn't stop after training. Every helpline specialist is paired with a one-on-one coach and takes part in regular coaching sessions. They have access to ongoing continuing education led by a licensed clinician, and they can drop into regular office hours with a licensed clinician to keep building their skills and their confidence over time. So you're never doing this work alone.
Wow. This is fantastic. So the 21 hours, and it sounds extremely comprehensive, but it leads to a whole nother set of opportunities for continuous learning, continuous interaction and enhancement of one's knowledge and skills, and the teamwork and the one-on-one coach, the helpline caregiver specialist, the continuous learning. Megan, this is very good. This is very good. Thank you. Thank you. Jessica and Inigo, one more question for you two before we move on to our final segment. And I kind of mentioned this already, and that is about a favorite story. So I don't know whether there's anything that came to mind as I asked that you'd like to come back to on that one, but if you'd like to. And Megan, there may be a story that you would like to share that one of the members of the team have brought to you. Open it up to all three of you if there's any story that you would like to share in terms of with our listeners regarding the work that you are doing and have been doing.
I do have a story that comes to mind. I had a call come in, and it was a mom. She was the caregiver of her adult son.
Mm.
And we know when you're dealing with an adult, it's already complicated enough, because if they
Yes.
say no, that's it. It's not like a child where it's a little bit, they still have some say so, but not as much. So as a parent, you can still parent. When they're adults, what they want happens most of the time. So mom calls in. You can tell she was just frustrated and defeated and sad, and she's telling me about her son. Her son is going through it. He's in it, and he is yelling in the background, and so he's there, and I'm trying to see if I can get her to, hey, can you go into a separate room so we can actually, continue this conversation, because he's correcting everything she was saying, and she was just getting more frustrated. And she actually did call in for resources, not just for support or what to do. So I was going through and trying to tell her about the crisis, the mobile crisis units, what can come out, looking it up, getting her the information for it. Her son came in and tore up the paper, and just, he was really frustrated. He has his own things going on. And he said, well, I want to talk to her. And I kind of got nervous. I'm not going to lie. I got a little nervous. I'm like, okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's kind of do some of the stuff NAMI did teach us, which was centering yourself and making sure you're good. And if you need a moment, it's okay to take a beat. So took a deep breath, and he picked up the phone and said, hey, how are you? Just kept it a casual conversation. At first, he was really frustrated. I did a lot of listening and letting him know that I heard him. And as I was continuing to let him know that I heard him, he was starting to level out a little bit. His steam was starting to go away. And he was like, I just don't want to be this way. And I was like, I can understand that. And I'm really sorry you do feel this way. What can we do to make this feeling go away? Leading to what we know of, which is what our care is. So, some of it is medication, some of it is taking care of yourself. There's a whole list of things we can go through on how to make some of these feelings kind of subside. And he had talked about his medications and how he didn't like how they made him feel and all these things. So we talked for a while. And he kind of went through his emotions, and that can be kind of draining as a volunteer, going through it. And the mom would pop in and see how it was going, and he would get mad again. And so there was a lot of this back and forth. And he finally was just like, you can talk to her, and like handed her the phone. And so she and I started talking, and I was giving her the information again that we were working on before.
Mm-hmm.
And he pops up in the background and was like, you need to make me a doctor's appointment.
Wow.
And she was
Wow.
like, what did you say to him? And I said, it was just a different voice, listening and probably doing what you already do, but it was somebody else saying it. You're not alone in this. You don't have to be alone in this.
Wow.
And now every time it might not work, because there are definitely times that we try our list of skills and it doesn't work. And those calls can be really hard. But to have one work, especially in a complex of dealing with two people, and so satisfying two people at the end of it who were on two different extremes, who were both exhausted and over this, it was really nice to kind of have it come full circle, because it on the helpline it doesn't always. We get hung up on. We get
Yeah.
people who stay mad. We get people that stay in their feelings. And we can't always change that. But this time I was able to, and that felt really good.
That is an incredible story. And thank you, Jessica. And, and Inigo and Jessica, what this talks about is your care, your patience, your training, and your ability to see the person, meet them where they are, and to stay with them. And so, thank you very much. And Megan, thank you as well for your leadership, the tone that you set, and how you operationalize the NAMI Family Caregiver HelpLine. As we get to the wrap up, I have a question for you, Jessica, and you, Inigo, and that's this one. It's something that we do with all of our guests at the wrap up of our podcast, and the setup is this: holding on to hope. The world we know can be a difficult place, and sometimes it's hard to hold on to hope. That's why with each episode, we dedicate the last couple of minutes of our podcast to a special segment called Hold On to Hope. So it's really one question for both of you. What helps you hold on to hope? We'll have you go first and then Jessica.
All right. So that's a great question. And like you said, sometimes some days holding on to hope is more challenging than others, and it feels that way. Uh, I, I know I cannot lose hope. And it's not a choice. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen personally. I know that mental illness can be managed well, that people can live very fulfilling lives with mental illness. And I know that it is not an easy path to it. However, I know that there is an active community. I don't feel alone. I know there is a lot of efforts put into combat loneliness, combat the mental illness, empower people to overcome it. I know that there is a huge amount of love and caring in society, and I also see the stigma decreasing. Like when I was young, like the stigma was so that we didn't even have the vocabulary. We didn't even have. It was risky to share these things, even though there is still a lot of stigma and a lot of challenges. We have come a long way. So I look back and I draw hope from there. I look around and I see you, I see NAMI, I see many other people, I see psychiatrists in my hometown. I see a lot of people who are willing to contribute, to do their part to help all of us overcome these problems that are so widespread in our society. So that's what that drives my hope.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you, Inigo. And Jessica, same question. What helps you hold on to hope?
There's a couple things. One of them is what I've gone through and what I've overcome, and seeing that, and in those moments where you're starting to feel hopeless, looking back and going, is that as bad as that was? Is that coming back and being able to kind of boost myself in that with what I've gone through, and being able to give myself hope. And in those moments where I can't give myself hope, I turn to my husband and I turn to God. Those are the two things. I try and keep it simple because I've tried complicated ways in the past, and it didn't really work. It kind of felt like I was going through the motions. So those three things keep me going.
Thank you, Jessica, and congratulations to you and all that you've navigated and how you've elected to give back based off of your experience. So, Megan, I want to come to you. I know I said that the question was for Inigo and Jessica, but I do want to come to you as the leader of the helpline, the workforce of the helpline, the incredible team that you've constructed, the leadership team. You see a lot, you hear a lot, you lead with incredible compassion. What helps you hold on to hope as the traffic flow of calls and people navigating things? What helps you, Megan, hold on to hope?
Honestly, it's the helpline itself.
Mm.
Every single day, hundreds of kind, supportive conversations happen on the helpline, and every one of them gives me a little bit of hope. These are more than just informational calls. They're conversations about the how, not just the what, real practical strategies for navigating those hard, kind of tangled up moments that come with loving someone through serious mental illness. But what moves me most is knowing that this guidance isn't coming from a manual, right? It's grounded in hard-won, lived experience, the kind that you can only get by walking the path yourself. But even more than that practical knowledge, what I see happening on the helpline, one call after another, one text after another, is just genuine human connection. Someone who has been there, really been there, sitting with someone who's in the middle of it now and saying, I understand, you're not alone, and there is a way forward. That's what gives me hope, knowing that space exists and knowing it's growing every single day.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you to Inigo and to Jessica for being a part of the Family Caregiver HelpLine and giving back. And that is so critically important, and it's so touching in terms of the lives that you're able to impact, the families you're able to impact, and the hope you're able to give them. So as we wrap up, I just wanted to make sure that on behalf of NAMI, we said thank you to you. And this has been Hope Starts With Us, a podcast by NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. The NAMI Helpline is always accepting volunteer applications, and we would be honored to have you join us. If you or someone you know might be interested, please visit nami.org/volunteer to learn more. If you are looking for mental health resources, you are not alone. To connect with the NAMI Helpline and find local resources, visit nami.org/help or text NAMI to 62640 or dial 800-950-NAMI 6264. This has been a wonderful podcast. We have enjoyed speaking with you, Megan, you, Inigo, and you, Jessica. Wish you the very best. And to our audience, please be well.